Good afternoon. Somebody give me a thumbs up if they can see me and hear me okay. I always am not sure if I'm talking to anybody until somebody joins me here. This afternoon, for the last day of term in Brisbane anyway, I have got 5 really great books. One of them I went to an event for yesterday afternoon, Atticus Fantasticus. Can't wait to share that one with you. But first of all, I'm going to talk about Can You Guess, which is by Emma Middleton and Connor Brecon, and it's the new one from Emma Middleton. It's an Affirm Press publication, and I was lucky enough to have Emma Middleton at school recently, and I've seen her do her storytelling a number of times over the years. She is one of the most outstanding storytellers, and what I love about her storytelling is that she uses her books as the basis for all of the storytelling that she does in schools, which is just so lovely, because I love storytelling, but I also love that book element as well, just for that add bit of literacy. So this is her latest one. It's called Can You Guess? And I'm just going to move that screen slightly. It's got really beautiful end papers, very whimsical, magical, celestial end papers, and it's a rhyming text. Now, when Emma said to me, it's a rhyming text, you know, I was alarmed, because a rhyming text is very hard, and I've got 2 today that are rhyming texts. Both of them I'm happy to report. In fact, I'd never show you one that didn't work as a rhyming text, but Emma Middleton does a great job always of getting her rhyming text just pitch perfect. It's really hard to do. I get nervous when I see a rhyming text, but this works. I am the magic Mazzledor. My bag is big and wide. You'll never guess the creatures I have safely tucked inside. And we've got this fabulous magician, magic Mazzledor. My clues are tough and tricky. Oh, but wait, you want to try? Well, in that case, I must warn you that my creatures can be sly. You'll never guess who sits upon this damp and slimy log and stares at all the tadpoles. What? You know that it's a frog. And we've got lift the flat pages. Now, I always am also a bit wary of lift the flat pages, unless they are ones like this, which are the whole page, and they're nice and sturdy, and there's not going to be little fingers ripping them off on the school library copies. Home copy, great, you rip your little flaps off, that's totally fine. I love all of the different settings that we've got for each of the creatures. In this one, we're bounding around Uluru, and there's a kangaroo. Who would have guessed it? My kinder kids absolutely adored this book. I read it to them once, and then we read it again, and we thought of some of our own clues. Oh, look, that's really attractive. You can see my vacuum cleaner in the background and my washing. Welcome to my life. Yeah, my kinder kids absolutely adored it. I'll show you their favourite page. Now, Emma has this real whimsy about her herself, and she's just delightful in real life, and I can fully imagine her. For those of you that don't know, I used to have quite a thing with fairies and glitter. Anyone that's ever worked with me will be well and truly familiar with my love of all things glitter and fairy. And I can totally see Emma with fairy wings on. She would have made a beautiful fairy, you know, back in the 90s when fairy shops were really big. And Emma Middleton has included, this was my kids' favourite page, my kindy kids, where is it? Oh, I can't find it now. I'm looking for, oh no, I can't find it. Okay. What's this magic creature with a single sparkling horn? I love that the clues are kind of, not obvious, but they're easy, because the kids are just shouting at you before you've even finished the text. What's this magic creature with a single sparkling horn? She moves on hooves just like a horse. Don't say, unicorn! And look how gorgeous that unicorn is. There is a unicorn to rival Thelma. She is absolutely glorious. And yeah, my kindy kids loved that. I've read this with older children as well, and they've really enjoyed it. The last clue is a cool one. It's a dinosaur, and it's just one of those books that works really well. It's a book that you can have a lot of fun with. It's very playful. As I said, the rhyming text works really well. The illustrations support the text beautifully. They're very magical and whimsical and watercolory, and there's lots and lots of detail in the illustrations. There's lots of almost astrology type elements to them, and I love the characters. The magician is beautiful. He's friendly, he's lovely. Everything about this book just works for me for an early childhood audience. I am totes moving so that you cannot see the uniforms hanging up. Oh, hi, Angela Haid Harris. Can you see my kids' washing hanging up in the background? I feel like I should stand up and move it, but you know, let's just keep it real. I have washing hanging up in the background. Okay, the next book that I want to show you is All of the Factors of Why I Love Tractors, and it's by the absolutely remarkable Davina Bell, and illustrated by Jenny Lovely. I think that's how you pronounce her name. I'm not quite sure. Hadn't said that one out loud until just then. It has got, oh, let's start at the cover. This is one of those picture books, which again is just perfect for the early childhood audience. Did you see what I did there? I just moved slightly so you didn't have to look at my vacuum cleaner and my washing hanging in the background. Anyway, back to the book, which is what you're here for, not the humour. So this one is about tractors, but it's about, oh my gosh, so much more than tractors. This is one of those really, really fabulous books for an early childhood audience that the parents will get as much out of as I think the kids will. The humour is very subtle, but it's very engaging and it's age appropriate, and the adults will really enjoy it as well. It's got a beautiful front cover with a little boy driving a tractor. And there's also lots of other little tractors and an aeroplane happening in the background there. So there's lots to look at in the front cover. And there's also a little clue as to what the story might also include, because the dog here has a book in its mouth. And there's actually a little bookworm peeking out from behind the main character's ear. The end papers, look at those. They're very vintage and gorgeous. There's lots and lots and lots of different types of tractors. There's snow plows. There's all sorts of, there's a John Deere there. So my grandparents always had chicken farms, and I grew up loving everything John Deere. I had a John Deere cap. I could drive the John Deere. I loved the front end loader. I loved all of the attachments on the John Deere. I had John Deere plastic toys. I was a really big fan of John Deere tractors, so I actually have quite a deep love of all things tractor and farming, thanks to my grandfather in particular. All of the factors of why I love tractors. I'm off on an outing with Mama today, and not just down to the park for a play. Where are we going? Can you guess? Take a look. I will give you a hint, and the hint is a book. And again, my kinder kids they took a few guesses, but they got that we were off to the library. They went down past the school and the pool and the shop. I run through the door with a skip and a hop. The library! Hello there, Frankie McGee, Miss Squid, the librarian, whispers to me. It's a place where you're not meant to shout, yell or cry. So I whisper back, hi, as I quietly walk by. At this point, Chickpea, my 8-year-old, when I was reading it to her the first night that this arrived in the mail, she was like, you could really learn from Miss Squid, because your library is really loud, Mummy, and everybody at school says that the library's too loud. And I was deeply offended, because I'm actually not entirely sure that's what the kids at school say about me. But I did point out to Chickpea, I said, look, I think that Miss Squid, the librarian, although she might be hoping for quiet, I said, I hope for quiet sometimes in my library as well, but let's have a little look further at this illustration. That is not a quiet library. There is children lounging around, there is children running around, there is piles of books which are just waiting to topple all over Miss Squid. There is pictures haphazardly put on the circulation desk. This is not actually a quiet library, Chickpea, I said back to her. Anyway, Frankie chooses another book about tractors. Oh no, says my mum with a very big groan when I show her the book that I want to take home. There are more than a squillion good books here to try. Why is it always those tractors, Frank? Why? And so it goes on. And Frank decides to tell her, in fact, he thanks her for the opportunity to talk about all of the factors of why he loves tractors. And I love all of the different tractors pictured. There's the John Deere. I love all of the different ages and nationalities of the children. I love that there's boys and girls driving the tractors. I love the illustrations. I love that they're bright colours and they have almost, I think, a golden book feel to them. And I actually think there is a tractor book a golden book about tractors, and there's certainly golden books about trains, and this book really reminded me of some of those, probably from my own childhood. Here again we've got a beautiful picture of the library, and in this illustration Mum is actually told by Miss Squid, the librarian, to be a bit quieter. So again, I was like, well, you know, it's not just the kids in a library that are noisy sometimes, it's also the adults. And Chickpea agreed. She's like, it's always you that's the noisiest, Mummy, in the library. I like that the tractors are pictured in all of their glory, with all of the pullers and the levers and all of the attachments. I love a good attachment on a tractor. This is, to me, very reminiscent of a golden book, and it's just gorgeous. Anyway, Frank goes on explaining all of the factors of why he loves tractors. He loves forklifts. Forklifts have forks if you're into those things, but not one of those is a good enough factor to challenge my love for a shiny red tractor. So great. I love it. Again, it's a rhyming text. It works really well. Of course it works well. It's Davina Bell. Oh, did you see what I did there? Even unintentional rhyming. Anyway, so Mum says, oh, Frank, I'm sorry. I just can't stand any more books about them. Well, these do instead. Cable cars, submarines, taxis, a sled. This one has rockets, high flying in space. Well, that one has cars driving fast in a race. But no, he is taking home that tractor book, and we have all been there, haven't we? And I asked Chickpea, I said, do you remember what you were really, really into when you were about Frank's age? And she said, yep, dinosaurs. And I said, yep, you would only read books about dinosaurs. And then you moved on, thank goodness, to Thelma the Unicorn, and then you would only read, well, you wouldn't even read books about unicorns, you would only read Thelma the Unicorn. It's just that went on for about 6 months. And yeah, children do go through these phases. What I love is that Miss Squid, the librarian, is kind of, at the end, she does this beautiful thing where she says, he takes the book up to the counter, and I have to say, I don't know if Davina Bell, if this was a memory from her own childhood or if she's seen teacher librarians or librarians do this, but I do this all the time. I say this all the time. Kids at school that always borrow, say, a unicorn book, they come up to the counter and I'm like, oh, what a surprise. I would never have guessed, says Miss Squid with a wink. Well, you know yourself best. When you want something different, just come and find me. A boy who likes books is a nice thing to see. Now, that is something I say to kids all the time. When you want something else, come and see me. I can give you something else. We need to not, I love that this book celebrates not only tractors and books and libraries and visits to the library, but I love that it celebrates those obsessions that small children have with books, because they do go through those stages. And as a parent, we can get really like, this is just ridiculous. We need to move on. I'm so sick of this. But actually, you know what? Those obsessions tend to burn themselves out eventually. As I said, Chickpea went from dinosaurs to unicorns, and then she went on to some scientific thing. She went through a scientific phase. And you know, but it's nice for them to see that obsession through, and they will. So Chickpea's 8 now, and she really, really remembers her dinosaur phase, and I reckon she could probably recite you Albie and the Dinosaurs or Edwina the Dinosaur. She could recite those books, as can I, because I read them so many times. But, you know, they come through those phases, but this book celebrates them as well. And I really, really like this last line. See, Mama, I say as I check our books out. I like books. That's what matters, not what they're about. And don't worry, I add, I know this one by heart. I can read it to you all the way from the start. And Chickpea was like that as well. She had a little bit of a giggle at the end line, because she's like, you used to hate it when I would say the books all the way to from the start to the finish. And I did. Sometimes you sit there thinking, I just want to get to the end of this. You can't skip any pages. It's just beautiful. This book works so well. I cannot believe my washing is hanging in the background and my vacuum cleaner's on the floor. Anyway, well done, Davina Bell, yet again. Perfect book for early childhood. My next book is also a picture book. This one is for much older children. I would use this one, in fact, I'm hoping to use this one with my grade 6 students next term. This is Miss Franklin, How Miles Franklin's Brilliant Career Began, and it's by one of my favourites in the industry. It's Libby Haythorne, and it's illustrated by Phil Lesney? I don't know. I really need to practice these names before I say them out loud, but he is also an incredibly well-known illustrator in Australia and somebody I greatly admire. I really adore his artwork. He's done a book with Libby Haythorne before, and I think it was shortlisted for, or it won a couple of awards. It was beautiful, their last one, The Soldier soldier, boy, dog, something like that. Anyway, this one is about Miles Franklin, and I love this book, and I think it's a great one to do with upper primary because Miles Franklin, as most of you would know, 2 awards in Australia are named after her. There's the Miles Franklin Literary Award, which has just been taken out in 2019 by Melissa Lukashenko with Too Much Lip. And then there is also the Stella Prize, yes, the Stella Prize, which is for women writers in Australia, and that's just been taken out by the book called The Erratics, which was also a brilliant book. Both of those books have been among my favourite adult books this year, particularly Too Much Lip. I cannot recommend Too Much Lip highly enough. So Miles Franklin has a really long history in Australian women's literature and Australian fiction writing, but she has a really interesting backstory, and this story is all about it. Now, the end papers in this book are sublime, and I know I go on about end papers, but they are just exquisite. Now, this book is set in about the 19th century, and I feel like Phil has taken a lot of the style of art from that period and translated it into the book. It seems to be done with maybe some acrylics, but mostly watercolor. There's definitely some layers within this painting. So here's our beautiful setting, and this sets a color palette for the entire book. The final end paper I'm going to show you now, the final end paper has got this gorgeous main character, Imp, and she is now sitting reading a book, and all the reason why she's now sitting and reading will become apparent as you read the book. But again, when I read this book to Chickpea, she instantly commented on the end papers when she finished. She said, oh, Imp's not in this picture, and then she said, oh, she's probably up a tree. But at the end, she understands that books and reading and writing are really important. So even an 8-year-old really got that concept. She is a librarian's daughter, what can I say? She did come home this afternoon and say, I hate sport. They had Friday afternoon sport. And I said, you know, you just need to really have a positive attitude towards sport. Meanwhile, I'm thinking, I'm with you, dude. But I said, you've just got to have a really positive attitude. And she just rolled her eyes at me. She said, Mummy, no amount of positive attitude is going to make me like kicking things and throwing things and having to catch things. I don't like it, okay? Sometimes I just don't have to like everything. I just didn't have anything to say back to her. I was like, yeah, you're right. But you still have to do it, you know? And you need to tell Mr. Mosley and Mama J that you're going to give it your best shot because you've just got to have a go at it. Anyway, she's good at reading. She likes reading. Miss Franklin. How Miles Franklin brilliant literary career began. And at the start, we've got Miles Franklin pictured here, and she's looking up at this other main character, Imp, who's a little girl that she's taught. So Miles Franklin became a governess when she was younger. Her family was quite poor, and she became a governess for a family and educated the children. But there was this orphan child next door who in the book is called Imp, and she was quite a challenge to Miles Franklin as a teacher. Now, I find it interesting that Miles Franklin is pictured with this incredible red hair, as is Imp, the little person. I don't know what colour Miles Franklin's hair was. I always imagined it was black, but probably because I've only ever seen black and white photos of her. I love this fiery red hair. I love the texture in it. You feel like you could unknot some of those curls that are just flying around everywhere. Anyway, it's the story of how Miles Franklin was a governess, and she educated some children, and she was really unable to get Imp engaged in learning, but she also really understood Imp. You know, Imp would be outside watching in. She kind of knew that she was listening. Miss Franklin knew that she was listening, but she couldn't engage her. When Miss Franklin took her afternoon walk, she saw Florrie and Imp together. Florrie was taking the twig doll and offering Imp some blue speckled eggs in return. Miss is teaching us to read. Even books, Florrie said. Florrie told Imp. You should come too. Never. Waste of time learning to read when you work all day on a farm, Imp said loudly as she turned away. But Miss Franklin next saw Imp in the schoolroom. She took up a piece of chalk and drew herself on the board. She couldn't write her name, but the Davis kids would know she had been there. And she actually, she's a wild girl. She spits on the ground in front of her teacher, and they just have this kind of standoff. But they also kind of understand each other because Miss Franklin is really homesick, living way out in the middle of nowhere. She doesn't actually want to be there as an educator. She wants to be writing her book. And One day Imp comes into the classroom with a bird with a broken wing, and she brings it in because she knows that the person who is looking after her will dash it against a rock, but she knows that Miss Franklin won't. I put a seat outside the school shed, Miss Franklin said. You can look in the window. Learn your letters and everything will change for you. I promise. Never, Imp sprang away. But Imp soon came back to check on the bird. Mr. Davis reckons this bird will fly, Miss Franklin told her, and I wish I could fly away from here too. Imp frowned. How come, miss? I'm wild with longing to do something. I want to write a book about people like us, about our place, about our dreams. And Miss Franklin starts to open up to Imp and tells her about her dreams. Look at that amazing hair. Anyway, it's this most glorious story about the power of words. And this page here just sent goosebumps down my arms. I'm getting them even now. It is just beautiful. It's when Miss Franklin understands that Imp has been listening and taking everything in. And as a teacher, you sometimes have those moments where you have these children that really challenge you, and then one day you see this tiny, tiny glimmer of hope and understanding that they have taken something in, and you've connected with them and made that connection and made a bit of a change, even just a teeny weeny change in their life. And at the end, Miss Franklin is leaving and she is off to begin a whole new brilliant career, which is obviously her book, My Brilliant Career. And there is some more information about Stella Miles Franklin. It is such an amazing book about such an amazing figure in Australian history. I would love to see Libby Haythorne do some more of our more books like this with some of our other incredibly well-known authors, and I don't know, it's just beautiful. I'm definitely going to use this with my grade 6 girls next term. And Libby Haythorne, she's been around forever. I remember reading her book Thunderwith, which has been in print continuously for nearly 30 years now. I remember reading that as a teen and just being so astounded by it. And she's continued to just be such a force in the Australian children's literature industry. She's an educator. She works at university teaching writing students. She does lots of workshops. She's just one of those really amazing people that we need in our industry and that make our Australian children's literature industry so vibrant. So thank you, Libby, for all that you do. And thank you to you both for just that most beautiful, beautiful picture book for older readers. Staying with things that are for about maybe grade 4, 5, 6, although Chickpea, who's 8 and in grade 2, has read this one as well, is Atticus Fantasticus. And again, we're staying with something that is very visual, because this is a collaboration between Andrew Daddo and Stephen Michael King, two of my favourites in the industry. So Andrew Daddo has written, I'm guessing, but I think about 30 books, and Stephen Michael King is the author of a few, but the illustrator of, oh my gosh, so many. It must be up towards 100 now. I think Stephen Michael King's dogs are some of the best in the Australian book industry. In fact, the delightful Tony Flowers, I don't even know how he managed to do this, got me a few years ago some of my favourite illustrators. So there's Tony Flowers, and I've got a Freya Blackwood dog, and I've got a Gus Gordon dog, and I've got a Stephen Michael King dog with a Stephen Michael King bird, which is very special on the top of the dog. So I don't even remember how Tony Flowers got that done for me, but I love it. It hangs on my wall and I adore it. Atticus Fantasticus is about a little young Atticus who has got to make, so when Atticus turns 10, there's an ancient family tradition. They have a grandnan in the family who is very wealthy, like unbelievably wealthy. And when all of the children turn 10, they're allowed to make like one wish or choose one thing from grandnan's treasures. And so far, all of Atticus's siblings have really stuffed up. They've chosen stupid things that haven't really added anything to their lives, and it's just been a bit of a disaster. So everything is completely riding on Atticus. When Atticus turns 10, he has to choose something from Grandnan's kind of treasure collection. And it is, with an unfortunate sneezing situation, he actually sees a pirate ship underneath like a pull-up door thing and chooses a pirate ship, obviously with the intention of making, of finding some treasure. And so Atticus goes on this amazing adventure. It's, as I said, incredibly visual. The crew is pictured at the front, and I love this idea. This is almost, to me, like a story map that they often have on an end paper. There is the picture of the pirate ship as well, but then we have the crew. And I actually really like that all of the characters are introduced right up front. We've got Princess here, who I think is probably my favourite character. We've got the first mate down here, Muscles, Silent Type, Stink Eye, Fish Face, Rod, Lightning Rod, Hog Breath, Atticus, Slapfoot. I think Atticus looks very much like, I said to Stephen Michael King yesterday, he looked like Twig, but I didn't mean Twig, I meant Leaf. You know that beautiful book, Leaf, by Stephen Michael King. Oh, and look, there we have one of his dogs. His dogs are just exquisite. This is a highly, highly illustrated text. Atticus Fantasticus was a pretty normal boy from a fairly normal family who just happened to have an abnormally wealthy grandnan, as in she was stuffed with the stuff. More money than God, as the saying goes. And it's a rollicking tale, as you would imagine, of a pirate story. It's highly illustrated. It's very, very clever. I've got holding up the wrong copy. Look, I've got all of these little post-it notes of things I want to show you. So I've shown you the crew. I love their grandnan has these two helpers who are called Hulk and Hogan. There's all these jokes for the adults in there as well. Hulk Hogan, Andrew Daddo, very funny. There's beautiful dogs pictured throughout. The stray puppies have their own comic strip. This is the stowaway puppy, and throughout the book, the text is broken up occasionally by this comic strip. So it's a really clever text. It makes the reader work hard, as all good illustrated novels should. You know, do you look at the text first? Do you look at the illustrations first? Do you have to look at them together to understand the story? You know, what is told in the story? What is told in the text? I think that these sorts of books, I know these sorts of books make children work really hard, but they also keep children really engaged. They help to improve their visual literacy. They help reluctant readers, the pictures help reluctant readers to stay engaged. They move the story along. They also are great for proficient readers and really fast readers. I often give these books to because it slows them down a bit. Sometimes when you've got children that can just race through anything and could potentially read War and Peace, although why would you at 10, but sometimes I just want to slow children down, and books like this are really good for slowing children's reading down because they have to really work hard at meshing the illustrations and the text together, which is really important. We live in an age of visuals, and children need to be discerning viewers of visuals. There's a little bit more of that comic. It's funny, it's clever, it's just really, really lovely. We were very fortunate yesterday afternoon to see Stephen Michael King and Andrew Daddo at Where the Wild Things Are in Brisbane. And Stephen Michael King drew some of the characters from Atticus Fantasticus, and it was a real treat to see him draw and to hear Andrew Daddo speak. I mean, who doesn't love one of the Daddo brothers? What's not to love about a Daddo brother? But Andrew Daddo has been writing, as far as I'm concerned, some of the most heartfelt and heartwarming books, from picture books to middle grade to young adult books, for years now. He's so clever. He does so many things. He does that amazing podcast, This Glorious Mess. He plays golf, apparently. I don't know why you'd want to play golf, Andrew, but anyway, good for you, I suppose. He's an all-round clever guy, and I love it when really clever people write really clever books that connect with children and give children something sophisticated and meaningful to read. We want clever for our kids, but we also want heartfelt, and I feel like his books are. At the end of the book, you can find your pirate name, and I love this, How to Draw Atticus Fantasticus, and there's a step-by-step there from Stephen Michael King. And then on the very last page is a look at the next book. So there's going to be 3 in the series. I think the next one is out early next year. I love what Andrew wrote to Chickpea. Chickpea came along to this session. I was a bit embarrassed. I should have it somewhere around here. She came to this session at Where the Wild Things Are with like a whole page of questions that she'd written as she'd been reading the book, and she proceeded to stick her hand up every time Andrew said, "Any more questions?" Hand to go up. And at the end, he wisely only asked her 2 questions. And at the end, she beetled on up to him to ask the rest of his questions. And he was very patient with her. But at the end, he wrote, "For Chickpea, fantasticus to meet you. Keep asking questions." Yeah, thanks, Andrew. More questions. And Stephen Michael King drew Princess for her. And in my copy, I got a dog, which I'm very happy about. Really love it. Great one for middle primary readers. Just superb. Moving to something a bit older again is my last set of books. A lot of you that teach upper primary will recognise these. Angela Hayde Harris, I hope you're still on there because your girls in your class will adore these if you don't already know about them. So Robin Stevens is an author, I think, from London. I love this series. She has just done such a great job with them. I describe these to the girls at school as, I always say, so do you have somebody at home that watches that dreadful show on the ABC, Midsummer Murders, where everybody in Midsummer keeps getting murdered, and I don't know how there's anyone left in Midsummer because everyone keeps getting murdered and there's all these crimes, but actually nothing bad ever happens. Like, it's Midsummer Murders is pretty G-rated. So are these. Murder Most Unladylike, you know, yes, it's a murder series, but it's so G-rated. And like Midsummer Murders, I'm not entirely sure how there's anybody left in this boarding school because there's an awful lot of crimes and murders, but, you know, nothing bad actually ever really happens. They're very, gosh, how would I describe them? They're very Enid Blyton cross R.A. Spratt, Friday Barnes cross almost a bit Nevermore-ish or Harry Potter-ish, bit Mallory Towers. Gosh, there's just so many influences in here, and they, I think, will appeal to such a wide range of readers. They're definitely, I think, for grade 5, 6 and up, so I'm sort of saying 10, 11 and up. In the first one, which is this blue one here, we meet Daisy Wells and Hazel Wong, who have set up a secret detective agency at the Deep Dean School for Girls, where they are in boarding school. And in this one, their PE teacher is found dead. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. PE teacher is found dead on the, no, it's a science mistress. She's found dead in the gymnasium. And in this one, they've got beautiful, beautiful, beautiful names. All aboard for murder. Death is back at Deep Dean. Top marks for murder. Death in the spotlight. The stage is set for murder. Arsenic for tea. Tea at 3. Murder at midnight. How great are those titles? Cream buns and crime. Tips, tricks and tales from the Detective Society. And a spoonful of murder. Not everyone's playing Happy Families. They are just, they're very jolly hockey sticks. They're very Midsummer Murders for little people. They're great. Look at the 4 edges on this one. They're red. They're just delightful. They're the sort of books that you want to own the whole series of, just to put them on your bookshelf. You know how you used to collect, or I don't know, maybe that was just me, like Enid Blyton books and Trixie Belden. Not that I actually like Trixie Belden, I have to say. I know, shoot me now. But you know how you used to, as a teen or a tween, collect sets of books? It's a very collectible set. This is Pudsta's set, and, you know, she will be very sad if she knows I'm showing them now. But, yeah, they're fantastic. Robin Stevens, can't recommend them highly enough. Kids who like crime, or maybe don't know they like crime yet. I think sometimes there's not a lot of, you know, really good crime books for little people, apart from Friday Barnes and a couple of other good Australian ones. But this one's slightly higher, but still not too scary. So that's about it from me today. That was longer than I anticipated. And I'm going to go and organise my children now. And I'm also going to take that washing down, and I'm going to move the vacuum cleaner. That was really unfortunate. I really should have thought about that a little bit more before I started, but I've had one of those days. Anyway, I am now at holidays, so breathe out. Wow. See ya.